Hey gang, so today I thought we would paint a TECHMARINE, do a little tutorial for it, and have a look at the TECHMARINE in the public test server for Space Marine 2 while we're at it. So once you've primed your mini, the first thing you want to do is just cover it in red. I have gone with Army Painter Pure Red. This is the same as Evil Sun's Scarlet, more or less, from the Citadel line. I'm using quite a big brush, and it's kind of watered down, but essentially I'm just kind of slapping it on. In Space Marine 2, it's really cool to see the TECHMARINE in here. It's kind of difficult to get him to look exactly like the box art one that I'm doing, but he has a load of different heads, he has a load of different shoulders, he has about 4 of each, give or take, of each helmet, shoulders, chest, legs, that kind of thing. It's really cool. It's really nice to see. My one complaint with it is that it's kind of difficult to get him to look like the box art, like the chest in the game that is the same as this mini is only with the skirt, and I don't really want the skirt, so it's kind of like, oh, okay, I'll just use this one instead. There are some really nice backpack options. They're kind of same, but it does change the arm of the backpack as well, the servo arm, which is nice. And then his mechanical arm, you can't really change this too much, it just kind of changes the trim at the top and on the wrist. Really nice to see that little tendril just floating around. It is a shame I can't take off the AdMech logo on his left knee. It's kind of annoying. It's not on the box art, so I didn't want to put it in, and I didn't really want to freehand the half skull, half cog, so I just kind of left it out on the mini. Going through the chapter colors, it does seem that they haven't actually done anything special for TECHMARINE. It's literally just the chapter colors. It's a bit of a shame because in reality, a TECHMARINE is red, and the only thing that changes per chapter is the shoulder pad, unless you're a Space Wolf or a Iron Hand, in which case you get a special guy. So doing the lenses, I should have done the eyes first before I did the red, but here we are. You want to start with a dark green base. I've used Blighted Green from Army Painter, which is the same as Incubi Darkness from Citadel, and then I've gone in with Rainforest Green to do the highlight, which is Moot Green from Citadel. Close enough. So you just want to be kind of careful, just keep it within that green base that you did. And any mistakes you make, when you do the red, you should have really done this before the red, you can just cover it up really easily. And then for the shoulders and the little knee pad, I'm using Imperial Blue, which is the same as Nightlord's Blue. I kind of prefer this to all of the Ultramarine Blues. I find the Ultramarine Blue is a little dull, maybe a little purple, where these ones are pretty nice. These are still just bases. These are not the final colors, so it's fine. Just to tab back to the game for a second, this is the PvP Chaos Space Marine TECHMARINE. This is a red Corsair. He has 6 little tendrils, which is pretty nice. He has a nice cape as well. He looks absolutely amazing. He looks insane. He doesn't have any physics in PTS, so he just kind of is very static, but he looks really cool, and this does kind of make me want to play PvP. I hate PvP. I never play PvP, but for this, I might. There is also a Alpha Legion skin that I did not realize was in this game for PvP. Looks absolutely amazing. It looks very Aquaman, and we love that. Doing the little satchels with Banshee Brown, which is the same as Dryad Bark from Citadel. I've tried to kind of put an equivalent paint from each company, because I feel like a lot of people just use Citadel paint. I use Army Painter, because they sent me a bunch of their paint, but I tried to, like, make a little comparison so you can use whichever you want. Next is the black. I'm just using Army Painter Matte Black. You can use Abaddon Black from Citadel. I'm just doing all of the plumbing, all of the black pipes that I need. I'm keeping clear of the little flat pipes. We're gonna do hazard stripes on those, so we don't want to make them dark. We will be going over them with white just to give a base for that yellow, but it's kind of annoying if you already painted them black. And obviously don't forget to do the undersuit, which is also black. I have sped up some of this painting. It did take me 3 hours to paint this guy, so do not be put off if you take longer than an hour of this video to paint this. I have sped some of this up quite a lot, just so it's not a million hours long. I also didn't want to cut too much, just so you can see that I'm doing everything and I'm not just like skipping steps, so you have to go sub to the Patreon to get the full PDF. So I've tried to leave everything in that I can. Doing the gun, I just kind of wanted to do all of it black, so again, I'm still kind of using a big brush for this. If you want to know what brushes I use, again, Army Painter send me brushes. So for the red, I did use the Army Painter Wargamer Monster brush for the red and for most of the basing that I did. For this one, when I'm using the black, I did do Old Hobby Base Coating Army Painter brush, which is a little bit smaller. Looking back at the game, this is the new operation. I'm just gonna sort of play it through on the side so you can kind of give it a little watch, see how the TECHMARINE plays in the game. It's actually really fun. I did this mission with the Omniscient Axe, which is the TECHMARINE weapon of choice, and it looks really good. So after you've done all the blue and the red and the pipes, you just want to slap on the Nuln Oil. You don't really want it to puddle, but you don't want to put too little on that it doesn't leave pretty dark grooves and edges. It doesn't really matter if it puddles on the panels, because you're going to paint over it in a bit anyway, but no one ever taught me how to use shades and stuff, so I just kind of slap them on and then I kind of paint over the bits that I don't want to be like that with some brighter colors. It's kind of like a reverse edge highlight, I think. So like I said, going over the Nuln Oil, I've got a Fiery Vermilion, which is a Wild Rider red. This is brighter than the first red we went with. It's a bit more orange. And I'm essentially just repainting the panels, leaving that Nuln Oil pure red, like, edge where it wants to be darker. I think this just gives a really nice kind of, not cel-shaded, but kind of like a more solid heavy metal approach. So, yeah, I'm just going over all of the bits, getting all the little bits, brightening up everything I want to be brightened. Obviously, if you want bits to be darker, to be more in shadow, don't go over them at this stage. But I think I got every surface, more or less. Unless I couldn't reach it. I don't really water my paint down too much. I just essentially put it on my wet palette and then that's kind of it. If there's water in my brush, it's not a lot, so I don't really thin my paint. There you go. So with the head, you want to do at this point to fix up any mistakes you've made, kind of, and to hopefully cover up if you've gone over the eyes. So you want to kind of highlight underneath the eyes all the way up and then on the forehead as well. I kind of ignore the bit where the top of the helmet kind of curls over the top of the eyes. I kind of ignore that. If that's got green on it, then it's already in shadow. It doesn't really matter. I should say, when you are doing the Nuln Oil, try not to get it in the eyes, because we're not going to paint those again, we are just going to leave them. So if you got Nuln Oil on the eyes, I'm sorry, you might need to go back in with the Rainforest or Moot Green just to brighten that up again. I feel like when people paint these normally, they put the highlight in the groove around the edge. But I kind of prefer it having the bright bit be all over the top and then leaving like a 0.5 millimeter around the edge where it's just dark. I think it adds like a nice little distinction between the blue and the metal trim. Otherwise, I find that the trim and the blue can kind of not get lost in each other, but kind of, I feel like they just need that line. So here we're going to go in with the crystal blue. This is the same as Techless blue in Citadel. We're essentially doing the same thing as with the red, where we're just going over the blue and making it brighter, except the edges. Same with the shoulder pad. One of the really nice things about TECHMARINE in the game is the use of the sentry turrets. They're pretty cool. Look at them just demolishing these chaos guys. So now we're going to go back to the blighted green. We're essentially doing what we did for the lenses, we're going to do for the plasma on the gun. So you're going to want to color in the plasma coils with the blighted green, and then go in with the rainforest or moot green and just do some little spots and then kind of pull them up when they're still wet and give them a little blend out just to give that kind of brightness.
I notice that your war gear is far cleaner than that of your brothers.
I see it as my duty to ensure it is properly cleaned before it returns to the armory.
I can speak a binaric benediction if it would please you.
Conferring with machine spirits is your realm, Tellurian, not mine.
I really like some of these voice interactions in the game. They're so good. They're very sweet. It just gives it like an extra depth as well. You can't really forget that Space Marine 2 is a Warhammer game, but when they throw in little lore things like that, it is really nice. If these were bigger plasma things, I would do this also from the top, but we're kind of gonna do a little cheat and not do that, so then we don't have to blend in two directions, we just blend upwards. So once you've done the coils, you just want to do this little edge on the top, and it'll kind of do the work of what doing the blending downwards from the top of the coils would do, so you don't really need to do that. Do this instead. Easy peasy. So moving on, we're going to go over the little skinny pipes with white. I'm just using matte white from Army Painter. You can use White Scar from Citadel. You can use whatever white paint you want. It doesn't really matter as long as you cover up any red and black that are on the pipes, because when we go over with the yellow, as you know, yellow is awful to paint with. So we're just gonna make it as easy as possible by giving us a white base. This is a really cool bit of the mission because you don't really get to see the Cadians do much, but here we have them with like tanks and they're doing stuff, and you have the turrets and they have like a little base at the start. It's really cool, and they're not doing anything like super like magic. They literally just want to close the gate and they just need your help. That's all they're doing. It's a good plan. Stop the Tyranids, close the gate. For people who are going to comment, like, oh, you should have done pink under the yellow. You only really need to do that if you're looking for a warm pink. I feel like if you're just doing hazard stripes, you're kind of just looking for like a highlighter yellow, or at least a sort of cold-ish yellow. So I just do white as my undercoat instead of pink. Now, you don't have to do this, I just thought I would because I'm too lazy to use transfers, and somehow freehanding is less lazy to me. I don't have to go and get water and tweezers and stuff, so I thought I'd just do the little insignias. You don't have to do this. Use a transfer. Please use a transfer. If you do want to know how to draw this, I do have a freehanding basics video that I did a long time ago. I just did some ultramarine symbols on a Space Marine. But essentially you just want to kind of draw a horseshoe or a circle and then just fix it up with some of that crystal blue just to get the shape a bit better. And then doing it on the shoulder. The shoulder is a little easier, it's such a larger surface. So you want to start with the line at the top, you want to make a little middle spot and draw your circle from there. I have sped this up a little bit, but it's a fairly simple shape. You just need to be able to draw a circle and kind of eye out how thick which areas of the circle need to be, and then just fix it with the crystal blue. Like, it doesn't matter if you do it wrong, you've got a flat base with the crystal blue. If you are doing non-metallic, then yeah, you'd have to redo your shading if you did it wrong. If you were doing this on a non-metallic shoulder, then I do recommend getting yourself a white chalk pencil or some pastels and using that to kind of map out and draw on where you want to go and then paint on that, and then just use some water to like rub that off if you haven't painted over every chalk mark. Next up is the AdMech bits. So these are kind of 50-50, half skull, half cog, where the cog is opposite white and black to the skull. So if you just go in with the white first, you can kind of set yourself a quite nice base to work off. If you only paint half of it and then you paint half of it black, it's kind of hard to see if you've gotten all of the red, and if you've left any by accident. I'm sorry, this is out of focus. I'm sorry for the black bits on the painting camera at the top and the bottom. I tried to keep it in the center as much as I could, but I obviously wasn't great at doing it. Hopefully, in the next couple tutorials, I will be able to be a bit better with that. So here, if you want to do half white, I did do half here. I did not just paint all of it white, just to show you more clearly what it would look like. And then you want to do half the skull as well. And then going in with the black to do the other half. Easy peasy. And the other half of the skull. I didn't put any of the white inside of the eye sockets on the skull, so I didn't have to redo those with the black. If you did get white inside of the eye sockets in the skull, just sort of give your paintbrush a little wobble in the eye socket to bring that back to the black that it needs. So back to the hazard stripe pipes, I'm going in with Moonbeam Yellow, which is the same as Aerial Yellow, more or less. And I'm just going to go over all of the white just to get like a solid yellow. I only generally did like one layer of each color. The starting pure red, I didn't mix it properly, so it was mainly medium. So I did have to do a couple of passes of that because it was a bit streaky. But for most of these, I literally just did one layer. It did the job. It didn't need more than one layer. And again, I don't really thin my paints, so it wasn't really necessary. It's getting all the yellow. I did forget one of the pipes, and I did do it later, but it is in here. Through the power of editing, you will not know that I forgot a pipe. I would also recommend, if you are doing this, to sub-assemble. Do not glue the head on. I just did it for ease of video. I would not recommend painting the head while it's glued on. Everything else is pretty fine glued together, except the backpack. Keep the backpack separate.
No turning back. Understood.
So while you wait for the yellow, you want to go through and get all your metallics. So I'm using Lead Belcher. I do not have the Army Painter equivalent for this, but I think it's the same as Gunmetal in the Army Painter line. But honestly, the Citadel metallics are fairly decent, so I just kind of stick with those.
Corrupted abomination. It flees the battlefield. We can bolster their defenses. The heretics profaned the ecclesiarchy complex with a warp rift.
Hallowed brother, how fares your approach to the cathedral? I am here. Some chasm stands between us.
But it's okay. Just getting all of this done. Slap it on. Slap it on the Omniscient Axe. Remember his arm as well.
Emperor be with you, brother.
Stay near the Honorable Dreadnought until our paths converge.
Nice little voice line. I do like the voice that they've done for the TECHMARINE. It is very cool. I do like listening to it. Not as much as I like listening to the Demon Host from Darktide, but it's close. So you want to do all of the trim. If you are doing this a second company TECHMARINE, you will be wanting to paint his Ultramarine's shoulder with gold trim instead of silver, but I'm just doing box art, so I did it in silver. I like to do these little bits on the back of his feet as well with the silver, and he has some little lug nuts on his arm that I got, and then you just want to get all the tendrils and all the stuff on the backpack and the gun. I'm just using a kind of old brush for this. It was kind of annoying because it's not very pointy, but it's kind of difficult with metallics. You can't really water metallics down, so you do have to kind of just use an old brush that gets a bit cloggy with the sparkle. I feel like I went through this mission really slowly, but it's actually just a really long mission. It's a really nice one. It has Tyranids and Chaos, so it just kind of keeps going. It's really nice. So going back to the pipes, I find hazard stripes kind of easy. You just need a brush and you just need to essentially make lines. The hardest thing is to keep them kind of consistent in width and width to each other. So this is only sped up a little bit. This is at 150% speed. So it's not really sped up, but you can kind of see how long it takes. You just need to do straight lines. They don't even need to be that straight because they're going around a circle. So, yeah. And it kind of looks good anyway. It doesn't really, if you get them a little wrong, then it's not gonna notice. Like, there's so much going on this mini that it just looks good regardless. You just have to remember when you're going around corners like this that the hazard stripes will change angle to get around the corner, and I do recommend painting one side and then turning it and then doing the front and then turning it and then doing the other side, so you're not just doing each line all at once, because it will go wrong. It's really hard to do one line and keep it straight around the cylinder. There is one pipe that I had a trouble with. It's the last one on this recording, I think, of doing the stripes. You have to kind of turn it around and keep trying to like line it up. So I'm just doing one stripe in a spiral, and it took a while. So yeah, once you're done that, you want to go do the other accessories. So I'm just filling in this little dial with white, and I'm doing all the little buttons with white as a base, just so they're not super kind of dark or tinted. And then I'm just going to go in with the crystal blue that I used before to color in the big buttons. And then we're going to use the pure red from the start of the video for the dial. And then just clean it up with the black. And then I'm going to use the moonbeam yellow for the little buttons. And then there's a button on the Omniscient Axe as well. So now I'm going to use Screaming Bell just to get all of the bronze. Essentially with this paint scheme, on the Games Workshop recommendation of how to paint this, they recommend like 6 paints per like color, which is kind of insane. Like, even if I was doing this non-metallic, I at maximum use like 3 paints per panel, or like per color. So in this case, I used the pure red and the fiery vermilion, and then we'll go in with a highlight after this. And my normal, say, non-metallic gold recipe is a burgundy, a sort of amberish yellow, and then a highlight with that. If I need more than 3 paints, it just kind of feels a bit redundant when I could just mix these 3 paints to give me the tones that I want. The only time I wouldn't is if I was doing like steel or silver non-metallic.
Tellurian, what do you know of Xenos technology?
Abominable, blasphemous mockeries of the Omnissiah's greatness. However, some believe the study of such things could aid us in divining our enemy's weakness.
They walk a fine line.
Aye.
Moving on with the detailing, we're going to do some edge highlights. We're going to use Wolf Grey, which is Rust Grey in Citadel. We're going to do all of the black with these edges. It's very bright, and you're going to do the first one and think, is this too bright? Is this too much? But just bear with it. Trust the process. It will work out. don't worry about it. Trust me. It looks really clean as well. It looks really nice. So I just kind of went and got as many of the edges as I could. If you can't get all of the edges underneath, it's fine. The light can't get there anyway, so why would it be highlighted? Focus on getting all the ones on top and on the sides. You don't really need to do the ones underneath. If you've sub-assembled, then it'll be easier to do every single edge everywhere, but as just a quick little thing, you don't need to do every edge. It's essentially like dry brushing from the top down, but with edges. I have kind of painted this in a very like comic booky way. I do actually quite like it though. It turned out really well. I'm really impressed with this. So for the edges, you just want to use the edge of the paintbrush just to grab the edges, and then use your point of your brush to just do the tops of the pipes. If you're having trouble not getting it everywhere, just kind of use the brush on its side perpendicular to the pipe, so then it just kind of touches on tops of them. And you want to do a little highlight on all of the bodysuit lines as well. So for the edges for the red, I've used Lava Orange, which is pretty much the same as Fire Dragon Bright on Citadel. And you just want to, again, do all of the edges. Just grab all of the edges that are on top. I didn't do every edge with the orange on the guy. I just did ones that kind of made sense if it was like in sunlight. It works really well with the deep contrast that we have from the starting red and the Nuln Oil, because you get these like really deep shadow lines next to this really bright orange. So it's really nice. If you're finding that your orange is too translucent, do a couple of layers of this. I think I did maybe 2 layers of this. So here I'm only doing one of the edges on the knee pad. I think it just looks a lot better than doing both edges and then having this like red line in between them. But if you prefer that, then feel free to do that. So I'm just going around all the belt. The belt has a lot of dark around it, so it's a really good place to just get all of the edges on there because it has that contrast. Just doing some of the fingertips. I'm kind of just dotting these rather than swiping them, getting the edges of the chest. And then because it's by the head and the head is the focal point, I am just highlighting the whole of that top of the neck holder collar. And then you want to try and go in very carefully and get that like bottom eyeliner on the lenses and go down all of the little edges and leave as much of the black as you can. It just helps with the line art kind of style, having the bright highlight next to the dark shadow. I didn't do too much on the back in terms of the edges. I just kind of did a couple of them and called it a day. You're not really gonna look too hard at the backs of your minis. I'm terrible for painting the backs of my minis, so maybe do a bit more than I did, but... And then on the backpack, you just want to get all the little bits, and especially remember to go round the circle as well, just because it'll give it that little bit of extra distinction between the backpack and the rest of the backpack. You're pretty much done with the guy, so looking at the base on the box, I'm gonna do the bottom of it with Warp Log Bronze. Again, I'm just using Citadel Metallics. Citadel Metallics are pretty decent. I'm just using a old brush to kind of smush it on everywhere. I know where the feet are gonna go because I primed it and it left this like shadow. So I'm just kind of avoiding where I want the glue to be because you don't really want to glue onto the paint because then it's not going to actually glue it to the base. You're just going to glue it to the paint and then the paint might come up and it's not a fun time. I'm not super careful with the metallic. I'm just kind of smushing it around. You don't need to be too precious with this bit. And don't forget the little artillery shells on in the rubble as well. Next up from the box art, it looked like there was a blue edge highlight all the way around this bronze. I don't know if it's supposed to be copper with a sort of verdigris edge, but I just used the crystal blue again from the guy just so it has that bit of connection. If you are doing something to a mini and you want it to look involved in where it is, do try and keep something similar. So for this, the blue from the base matches the blue from the Space Marine. So it kind of looks like it makes sense that he is in this environment. It doesn't make him look kind of too standy outy. So I'm just going around all the edges, getting all the little rivets, and then I'm just gonna go in all of the little scratches on the surface as well. It is really nice. I never thought to do this with the bronze, so it is really nice. It doesn't really affect it too much either that it's metallic with matte paint on it. It just kind of works. I really like this. I might steal this for some other minis. So once you've done that, the next thing, I like to do my tufts next. I will say, because I used crackle paint after this, I should have painted the base first. If you're going to paint the base, if you're going to use the crackle paint, paint the base first. I like to put on tufts next, so I'm just gluing them on where I think it looks kind of cool. I'm just using these little tiny micro tufts of grass because it kind of looks what's on the box. I'm just putting a bunch of them. Don't be too sparing with them. People are generally too sparing with tufts and it looks kind of unnatural. But if you just put a bunch of them on, it can kind of look pretty good. So now I'm using the Martian Iron Earth to fill in. So I like doing the tufts first because I can kind of push the basing paint or texture paint through the bottom of the bush. You do have to be careful not to kind of get it up on top of the tufts. If you're having trouble pushing it through without getting all over the tufts, do the crackles first and then glue the tufts on top. I just kind of prefer how it looks when they're kind of embedded a bit more. And because it is crackle paint, it does kind of crackle where the tufts are, so it kind of looks pretty cool. If you get the technical paint everywhere, just use a wet brush to kind of splooch it down a little off where you don't want it to be before it dries. It does take a while to dry, it is crackle paint. I have put it on quite thick because it tends to crackle a bit more when it's thicker. So just chucking it on, and then you want to leave it to dry. And I didn't film this bit, but after the crackles are dry, you want to cover it in Nuln Oil. Just fill in all the little gaps, give it a little extra texture, and give it some extra texture on the metal as well. And this is what he looks like. I'm fairly happy with him. He actually looks really cool. Yeah. Let me know if you try this. Let me know if you've played TECHMARINE and Space Marine 2. And yeah, if this was helpful, I'm making some more of these. Hopefully a bit shorter, but we'll see. Okay. If you like this, like, subscribe, comment, etc. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Charge in hand. Heretic commander eliminated.
Cast this desecrated sanctorium down. Bury these heretics, so they never see starlight again.
Trigger the charges and advance to the egress point before the cathedral falls. First, I'll be my wake, and you'll survive this day.
I am grateful for your offer, Ancient One, but my place is here. I will speak prayers of consecration over the cathedral's final walls.
There is honor in her actions.